Okay. All right, now this looks a little squarish to me, so I'm going to change that. I'm going to create a little bit more angle in that. I think I'm going to bring it out more out here. I don't like to have things in a natural setting to look too geometric. And if I had left that way, this straight up and down line might have caused an annoyance later on. These things don't annoy you as you're doing them, but if you have the painting sitting on your wall over a period of time, it'll start to nag you. So we want to deal with that as much as possible now, because you don't want to be nagged, do you? So that much for that. Now, additionally, I thought that this part up in here had to be darker, because I wanted a dark over here, so that we focus in the middle. And I decided there was too much blue in here. So one of the things I want to do is I want to change the colors that I've used in here and make them a little bit more opaque. Also, I thought that if I had this much tree business, I should see some more shadows in here. So that'll darken this area also. I'm going to start with the shadows on the ground, so that we get the feeling that this part is also darker. And here again, the stroke that I'm using is following the contour of the land, so that all of my strokes are diagonal, slanting downhill. This helps to create elliptical perspective. The brush stroke alone can create elliptical perspective. Now I've got my dark green here. This is the green that I'm going to use to create the shadows. Now I'm going to lose a lot of these little openings in the tree in order to create the denser quality. And here again, see this straight line? The edge of these branches all come down in a fairly straight line. Let's back it up a minute. I want to put these other trees that I left out the first time in here, and let's see what that does to that contour before I change this contour. Now those, as you recall from the drawing, were fairly sparse. Now this kind of a abbreviation is one I've used before to create the illusion of the tree and its branches, and I almost always start with the trunk, so I'll know where I'm going, and from time to time I'll leave little spaces in that so that I can see where that trunk is. Now the branches on a tree like this start out pointing up, and then as the winters go by, they tend to sag and get a little lower, so that the ones on the bottom are actually pointing in a whole different direction. And that's an important thing to use. Many times people think that these trees look like fish bones. They don't take into consideration the branches that come forward or the changes that happen. So I want to make sure that I'm not doing that, and so I'm going to show these in their variations. I want to get my brush nice and flat, so I'm kind of combing it here on the palette. We can't just have one of these trees, we're going to have the other one, and this other one is not quite so healthy. Look at this stroke. You see how it's changing as I bring the tree down? That's the thing behind all these other strokes. So here's my third tree. A few of these strokes in here. I'm using the corner of my chisel edge to make these marks. Once again, I'm working large shapes first. I always want to work large to small, simple to complex, general to specific. Okay, so there's that tree. Now, also I was looking at this painting the other day, and it told me that we needed to have a lot more shadows on these bushes in here. If the trees are going to cast shadows, then the shadows are going to fall on the bushes too. All right. Now you can see that by making these darks in here, we're making this a little cozier. You see how we're bringing it in the two arms of the hug that this painting is going to have in its composition. Now I want to leave some of this light yellow in here. because that gives us a nice sense of light. But most of this I want to have in the dark tones. Okay, now I've also decided that this poor little guy here is just a little too flat-topped, so I need to put some more color into him and bring him up. So part of that is going to include showing a little bit more shadow in here. I'm going to come back in here with a highlight color and bring up the top, but I wanted to do this while I have this dark color handy. I'm making the fine lines, the fine little leaves with the corner of my flat brush. Flat is not the condition of this brush, but the name of the brush. We have flats, we have filberts, we have rounds, and we have brights. And your art store will tell you which is which, or if you look at tape number 1, I'll show you which is which. Now, you're watching me do this as fast as I can. Don't expect to do it this fast yourself. And in fact, you might end up frustrating yourself if you try to do it this fast. Speed is not the issue here. Accuracy is. And I want you to be accurate whether it takes you longer or not. You'll be happier with the result if you take your time. All right, now we're going to move to the water. We're going to do the highlights in the water.